It's a public place, and so I do need to say in advance that we do have a video recorder set up. If any of you have any concerns about your face or anything like that being on videotape in the library, please come see me afterwards. We will either get you out of the videotape or start deleting parts. So anyone on America's Most Wanted, let me know. And I'm not saying that because I turn you in for a reward. Not at all. So of course today I get the pleasure of introducing Mr. Ed Wesemann. In the spring of 1951, oh, you're looking at me. No? Do I have the dates wrong?
That's all right.
All right. In the spring of 1951, he purchased the Udina Triangle.
No, Stark's Triangle.
I beg your pardon, Stark's Triangle.
Yes.
And in 1978, you then sold the Stark's Triangle to Mr. Duhigh in here. But before that, you had the Udina Stark's Corners and Udina Triangle. Before that, you had the Udina Triangle, which was at the Graveyard Bend at the final Elgin Road Race. And so I think you're going to share that with us today.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Kelly. Well, first I want to thank everybody for showing up today. Kelly's been very instrumental in working with me on this. She took pictures of all my artifacts and put them on the computer. And that's what you'll be seeing now. And also some of these items over here from the Stark's Triangle. The first part of my program will be the Elgin Road Race as I saw it, being there. And the other part will be the Udina Triangle, where I spent 10 years living in that building from 1933 to 1943. Okay. We start off. You see what we've got on the first picture there. Okay, here we go. All right. This is what they call the graveyard turn because the cemetery is immediately west of this corner. Those fellows sitting on the garage roof there were good friends of my father. That's why they're sitting there. We knew in advance when this was going to be, and no one would be able to be in the buildings at the time of the race. They piled straw bales in front of the gas pumps and also in front of the garage. My dad made up a stand and had it over by the cemetery. My mother brought out her Coleman two-burner gasoline stove, and she fried hamburgers out there and made up some sandwiches, ham and cheese sandwiches that they sold. We had a couple of wash tubs full of beer and pop, and a chunk of ice in the middle of them. My job was to go, whenever we needed the supplies, I have to go around and go in the back door where you see those cars parked there. This car that's on the curb right now, this is really a coincidence. It's number 10 car. And I'll show you a picture of that later on. That's the car that won the race. So how that could happen is just it's unbelievable. But when we were there, I'd heard this airplane going over the top. And I thought maybe just some people observing it from the airplane. But I later found out the fellow came around and sold my dad postcards of that. And my mother was a great saver of things. So she saved one of those postcards. And that is what this picture came off of. Without that, I wouldn't have any record of it. And she also had some of this memorabilia that I have on the table here, these programs. There's a fellow walking around selling a little cardboard shaped like a Elgin watch. You put it around your neck with a string, and that was you paid him $1 for that. That's how they collected their money on these corners. Like at the starting point, there's a grandstand there, and they charged for sitting on the grandstand and so forth. But I had nothing to do with that part. Okay. Pardon? Oh, yeah.
Did they ever hit the
Oh no.
place?
There never was an accident. If you notice, there was an ambulance parked on the end there. They never used the ambulance. Now this is you see the front of the station. When my dad bought this property in 1930 with two other partners, they worked for the highway department. What they bought was just the first part there, with that roof sticking up. That's all that was there. And the gas pumps were down on the end between the two roads. I did right in here. So after a while, one of the other men was a carpenter, and he and his other friends, they built the canopy on the front, and they built the garage on the other end. So this picture here was taken about 1932, and if you notice, the only gasoline sign we had, or the logo, is that red crown gasoline sign hanging out on the canopy. There was no post on the end with a big sign on it, which they put on later when we got going, and they changed that. I got pictures of the logos that'll show you what they were. Okay.
Is that you or your dad in that picture?
No, he was the manager. They hired him and his wife to run the place.
I see.
And we'd they'd go out and check the things and so forth. Now the gas pumps are all visible gas pumps. There's a glass container on the top of those pumps, and the one on this end is the ethyl or high test gas. He must have just sold 5 gallons of gas out of that pump, because after you sell the gas, you're supposed to pump that up right away to the top, and you always start with a full amount of gas. In the evening, you stick the hose in a nozzle on the side of the pump, and there's a catch there that catches the handle and locks it open, and all the gas runs back into the tank. There's 2 lines going to the pumps. So at night, all you had to do was put a padlock on the pump handle so that you couldn't pump the gas. And one thing my dad always told me, when you get open up in the morning, go out and pump those pumps up. So when you go by, you see a station with gas in those probes, you know he's open. We never had an open sign on there. So let's see, I think that pretty well covers that part of it. A few other things. The race was won by Freddie Frame, and he was he had won the Indianapolis race the year before. They had a problem finding drivers for these cars. They didn't pay them very much, for one thing. So after the race, the car was sold and traveled around between different people. He wound up in a garage somewhere, and a person found it and had it thoroughly rebuilt. The car that you see, I'll show you a picture of it later, was completely taken apart and rebuilt. So it was just like new. And it was sold in an auction. And a fellow by the name of Mika, he handles car auctions. He bought it for $250,000. So the car is going to be in Elgin this year.
It is?
I believe so, isn't that right?
It'll be here for the Model T's Elgin Road Race
Yeah.
Car Show. It'll be August 26th, I think.
Yeah.
But it
So
will-
what
it will
they
be-
do, they drive around the course backwards. The original course goes this way around, and they'll come back from Elgin and go for making right-hand turns all the time. That's the reason. They won't be racing, they'll just be driving the antique cars around. So I remember this corner. When they got to the corner, they shifted into second gear, and they run in the second gear for about 1/8 of a mile, wide open, every time they made that corner. You can imagine the strain put on those engines and all the parts. And they never, I know of any Ford product that broke down during the race. So, we'll be showing the other, oh, there we go now, yeah. Here. The lower left corner, that's where our station was, our property was, on the outside of that corner. That one up on the top was called a hairpin turn because it was so less than 90 degrees, but they made a little shortcut in it, you can see, for the race. Going east a little ways by Huber's gravel pit, there was quite a hump in the road. And when they put that blacktop in, they didn't level it off. They just put it right over the hills, and the cars would go over that. All four wheels would be off the ground because they had to drive between 90 and 100 miles an hour on the straightaway to average out at 80 miles an hour. You can imagine taking these corners. They couldn't take them very fast because they were just almost 90-degree curves. So when you think about it, that's quite a speed to have and still make it work. Okay, let's see what else. I think. You got any questions so far on that? Okay, well, we'll finish up with the pictures now, and I can explain to these other ones. Oh, there's the number 10 again. But that was taken, I think, at a different time, because on the picture, we have the big picture, that 10 car is back there. But now that's, oh, there you go, right here, see? And you look at 80.2 miles an hour. So you see the people were standing all around, you know, and nobody ever got hurt. They just,
Miracle.
it was just a miracle, you know. The wheels could have come off the cars. And by the way, all these cars were stock cars. It was called the first stock car race in the country. It was cars that they would buy could be bought from a dealership. They weren't special cars just made for the race. They had no fenders, they had no bumpers, they had no headlights, and had no windshields. All those things added to the weight of the car to keep the weight down. So it was really a good test. There was a Dodge, a Plymouth, and 2 Chevys in the race. And the rest of them were all V8 Fords. So,
Was the 10 car a Ford?
what?
Was that a Ford?
Oh, yes, yeah, that was the winner. After the race, they took this car and traveled all around the country. All the Ford dealers, they had that on display for a day or so, you know. And that was the best promotion that Ford Motor Company could ever have.
Absolutely.
You didn't have to tell anybody how good the car was. They could see it. So, okay. I think that pretty well covers. I'm sure I've left something out, but that covers about 99% of it. Okay.
When was the first race then?
First race? Oh, that was in 1910.
Wow.
And there were 8 racers before this one. And there was quite a gap between the last race and this one. Until there's businessmen in Elgin. It's all on this brochure here. The people that were they were endorsed by and so forth. And it was very, very well organized. I don't think they made much money on the deal because they didn't collect much on the corners at all. There's any of the grandstand seat where they could charge for people. Okay, I'll go over to this table here.
Hold on one sec.
Oh, we got some more pictures, I'm
Got some
sorry.
more pictures.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Now, here you go right now. Just look at the race in 1920. He averaged 79 miles an hour on that track. And by the way, the whole track was gravel to start with. Even Route 20, which was actually Route 5 after a while. And the stretch from Udina halfway to the hairpin turn was gravel. And the other half was blacktop because the blacktop was Elgin Township and the gravel was Plato Township. That's the way they did it in those days. They each maintained half of the road, not half the road side, but each end of half the road. So that gives you an idea how fast those cars were going. And it's just amazing how they got around those curves and made that much speed. Okay. There's the car. Now this is the picture that was taken by a friend of Andy's. And I had it blown up. That was taken in front of the Sherman West Court rehabilitation building there in town. You see the other businesses in the background. And but supposedly that's to be brought back to Elgin this year too, is that right? Okay. So it looks just like a new car. It has been completely restored. Okay.
They didn't change out engines or anything?
What?
When they were racing that one, they didn't put a different engine in, it was just purely off the showroom
Oh,
floor?
yeah, that's what they said. That's all we know. What they said. I brought that along. Has nothing to do with this, but since it's an unusual thing. That was made during World War II. A can is made out of cardboard. Maybe you folks have seen some of those. Metal on top, metal on the bottom. My friend John Fensel, his dad used to sell oil, and he did too later on. He had a texaco station here in town. So I'm going to give that can to John Fensel today before he leaves. So I don't have a standard can that was made like that. So I just put it on there for the interest. Okay. All right, now, up until 1936, all the motor oil distributed in a gas station was in bulk. Some of them had pumps outside with a crank on it. You put it in a container and pour it in the car. But that wasn't very clean. It would get dusty and so forth. So they came out with these oil bottles, like you see on the table there. Most every major company had their oil bottles. And inside there's a little clip that you can slip out and put it into a different bottle. Like in the wintertime, you wouldn't have number 40 isovis on hand. And in the summertime, I wouldn't have the number 10 on. But for the display, I got them all four there. So inside the office of the lube room, I had 60-gallon containers about this wide, about this high. You pump the oil out, fill them up, and put them back on the rack. Then about 1936, Standard put this isovis oil, and I got a can here. This doesn't necessarily go back to 1936, but it could be a little after that. It's made of very heavy. You can't even bend it in with your fingers. It's so tight. That's when they didn't realize how cheap they could make something and still hold the oil. I had some of these on my sale when I had my auction sale. And I think I sold 2 or 3 of them. And believe it or not, they brought $85 a piece, a can like this, that I sold for 30 cents back in the 30s. But the people wouldn't buy them. There was only 5 cents difference in the price of the can or in the bottle. And that was during the Depression, and 5 cents could buy them a cigar,
Sure.
and a bottle of pop, and a candy bar, things like that. So we had to stand out in the driveway with these on, and they get rusty on top. They wouldn't sell. So my dad had me take some Von Mi, never heard of that, and clean the tops of these cans. So they look good. So it's quite a thing. I've been to a lot of Petroliana shows, and I've never seen any of these cans on display. I've never seen anyone else that has these cans. And when my dad took a case of that oil with us when we moved on the farm in the spring of 1943. And I'll go into that later. But I've got most of those cans left yet. because it's just great. Now,